Hi, I'm Cameron Humphreys from Humphreys Outdoor Power, and today we are going to take a look at two of the more popular Stihl lawnmowers in their lineup, the 500 series, which would be considered kind of mid-level commercial, and the 700 series, which is full-blown commercial. We're going to look at some of the specs and features of both, compare them both, and see what some of the differences are as well. So without any further ado, let's dive in. I think the best place to start is with what these machines have in common. We're going to see 52 and 60-inch deck size offerings for both. The decks are going to be very, very similar. We'll get into how they're different in a moment. Our engines are going to be very similar. We're going to have Briggs offerings, we're going to have Kawasaki offerings, all in that 25 to 27 horsepower range, depending on which engine you go with. And then we're even going to have fuel injection options as well. This particular machine is a Kawasaki carbureted machine, and it is a 60-inch deck. So we're going to look at it. As we're just taking a quick glance at them, we're going to notice that suspension system. That's going to be the same on both. It's completely adjustable, and it's no joke. Anecdotally, I recently just had a customer who had a ZD diesel Kubota, and he really loved it, but he was starting to have back issues. He was trying to fix his ride. We let him demo, actually it was the 700 series, but again, same suspension, and he loved it. It fixed his back problems. He was able to mow again without pain. To his chagrin, he ended up trading in that Kubota ZD for a Stihl with a little bit better suspension, and it solved his problem. So again, this suspension, we've all seen it before with Ferris, but it is no joke. It is legitimate, and if you're looking for the best ride available, this is the place to do it. You can also add a suspension seat to either the 500 or the 700 model, so contact your dealer about that option as well if you just want to take that ride up even further. One of the nice features that both of these are going to share is this pull-out style floor pan, so you can get down to your belts and your pulleys, make sure everything's fine, blow that out with a Stihl leaf blower, and make sure everything's clean and you get all that debris out of there after every mow job. These bearings also need to be greased, so this is easy access to that. You've got two grease points on the outside you can get to, and then that center pulley that you have access to right here. So it's kind of a great feature that I think sometimes gets overlooked with these Stihl, and it would be the same is true with Ferris, I'm sure as well, where these are greasable, and most these days are not. So everyone's kind of moved to a sealed bearing, but these guys are still greasable, which is awesome as long as you grease. If you know, hey, I'm not ever going to do that, I don't know what a grease gun looks like, you should probably get something else. But if you are into grease and maintenance, greasing yourself is definitely something that you have more control over and get a little bit more longevity out of your bearings. So we've talked a little bit about these being greasable, but one of the other things that both of these machines share is the fact that you've got a really heavy-duty, well-reinforced deck. We talk a lot about, in other videos, these front caster wheels down here and how well they're reinforced. This is giving us protection on both sides, which is going to be a little bit heavier duty, so that whenever you bump into things, this isn't bending or anything. It should be a little bit better protected. I'm not going to say you can't bend it, because obviously you can hit a cinder block or anything going at full speed and it will probably bend this, but this is heavier than a lot of other machines on the market. And again, this is a commonality that both the 500 and the 700 share. So one of the things I always like to cover is the ease of maintenance for you. We talked a little bit about the front deck, but I also wanted to look about the engine compartments. And again, these are basically going to be the same between both the 500 and 700 series. They're not changing much in terms of frame or how the engines are set in or anything like that. This happens to be the 500 series. This is the FT730V engine that and we know where Kawasaki stuff is. They always put that. It's one of the reasons why they're kind of that top level gasoline engine. That stuff's easy to get to. Fuel filter is easy to get to. If we pop this seat up, it's got a convenient release right here. And we've got easy access to the battery. We can check both transaxles right here. So like I always say, that is an overflow tank. So as long as you see fluid in that, your transaxle oil levels are good. That will fluctuate with temperature and usage, but you want to check that and make sure that you've at least got some fluid in there. I do also like the design of the fans on the bottom. Hopefully that will A, keep your transaxle a little bit cooler, but also B, kind of blow some of that debris out there as well. So as we're looking at the deck lift system on this, it's also going to be the same. Again, it's Ferris system. You'll see real quick if we want to change deck height, we've got our pin selector right here. Put that in wherever we want it. As always, for Humphreys, we put it at 3 inches. And then the way this works is you've got this pin stopping this from coming back. If you move it open to that open area, it'll come back to where the pin is. And this is controlling this. So as we press forward, move that over to the side, and then it falls back to wherever we have the pin. So very simple design, but very effective as well. So you would set your deck height with these pins. You've got 1/4 inch increments. The top height where it's locked out is at 5 inches, and the bottom height, it looks like, is right at 1.5 inches. So you can go all the way down to 1.5 inches if you want, all the way up to 5 inches with 1/4 inch stops in between. As we're just kind of going over the controls of this thing, the parking brakes are going to be the same also. It's right here, so easy to pop down. When you're starting this, you're going to want to choke right here, turn the key, flip this parking brake down, and then pull this in. As always, it's got the safety feature where if we pull this in with the parking brake set, it's going to kill the engine. And that's pretty much standard on every lawnmower. They do not want you to drive with the parking brake on. Both of these machines also come with a fuel gauge and USB plugins for your phone as well. So I just mentioned that both machines have a fuel gauge on them, but I think it's time to maybe start looking at some of the differences. So this is the 700 series. You've got 5.5 gallons in that 500 series versus 11 gallons in the 700 series. Where they're getting that extra fuel capacity is by actually giving you 2 tanks. So if you see down here, we've got 1 and 2 different fuel readers for each tank. So they're essentially doubling up on your volume by giving you an extra tank. You can go longer without needing to refuel. Again, I think that's what lends this thing more to commercial use. You've got several yards you've got to knock down, or just a lot more acreage for your own property. That's where that commercial grade level of gas really comes in, so that you're not spending as much time stopping and refueling and more time out there making tall grass short. Just sticking with the differences here, we did the fuel gauge. The transaxles are also different. So with the 500 series, you're going to see that ZT3400, which is an awesome mid-range transaxle from Hydra Gear. It's going to place it just under like a Kubota 400 series at a 3600, but above most of the other residential stuff that you're going to look at. It's going to give you a top speed of around 10.5 miles per hour. The Z700 series is going to put you on a ZT4400, so faster pumps. We're going to have a lot more sensitivity, we're going to have a lot more control, and we're going to have a little bit more speed. So again, going from what would be considered kind of upper residential, mid-range to full-blown commercial for your transaxle from Hydra Gear. I also mentioned those greasable spindles, which I think is awesome for Stihl to offer. But there is a difference in those spindles between the 500 and the 700 series. So the 500 series has 5.25 inch spindles that are aluminum, and the 700 series inch has 7.9 inch spindles that are cast. So again, going from something that for most people will probably get you by just fine, and again I would say is better than most residential lawnmowers and those 5.25 aluminum spindles, greasable especially. Those 700 series with the 7.9 inch that are cast, that's chef kiss. That's really good. So especially the fact that they're greasable, and you really can't find a lot of greasable spindles on the market anymore. Everyone's converting over, as I said before, to those sealed spindle bearings. So that's one of the bigger differences between the two, just that when we say heavier duty deck, that's kind of what we mean. Ultimately, that will translate into what kind of abuse it can take and withstand over the course of its life. So as you can see, these machines have a lot more in common than they do different. But I do think that the differences are important when trying to decide which one's going to be better for your personal application. So I would say the 500 series is going to be great for that 4 to 6 acres mark where you have a pretty sizable yard, but we're not necessarily mowing several yards. The fact that it's a little bit above just your average residential lawnmower, I think is going to be a really good selling point for a lot of people. The suspension, obviously, we know from Ferris is very, very good. We've talked about how these are built by Ferris a lot in past videos. I'll leave a link to a video below explaining why I personally think that's a great thing for both Stihl and Ferris, this partnership. Put a link down for that one. But again, that suspension's been very nice. You're going to have that on both of them. I think that the 700 series is really going to shine for our commercial cutters who are mowing several yards. The dual fuel tanks is going to be huge for that. The bigger spindles on the deck is going to be huge because it's going to mean you can put more wear and tear on the machine without wearing it out as quickly as you might with the 500 series. Aside from commercial applications, I think the 700 series is also going to be good for that 6+ acreage customers. We have several of those where you're mowing a lot of acreage and you're going to put a lot more hours on the machine just for personal residential use. It's your residence happens to be bigger than most other people. So in that application, again, I would lean more towards the greater fuel capacity and a little bit heavier build overall of the 700 series. In general, both amazing machines. We've been selling a lot of both of them this year. They've really popped off. Last year was their first year to the market, and it was kind of a bad year to launch here in Indiana because we had 2 droughts basically. But this year it's been a very wet spring. We've been able to test these things out with heavier grass. They're doing a beautiful job out there. I already mentioned my customers enjoying the ride, and that's what's to be expected, right? So in general, both amazing machines. It just kind of depends on what your personal application is, on which one you might like. So make sure to leave a like, subscribe if you haven't, if you want to see more content like this, and comment down below on which machine might fit best for your yard. In the meantime, have a great day. Thank you for watching.